We are broadcasting live.
Good morning, folks. This is the Town of Mono's Council meeting on January 30th, 2024. The meeting's being conducted both in chambers and by means of electronic participation as permitted under Section 238, 3.1 of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended, and the Town of Mono Procedural Bylaw 2020-42. If you have downloaded the agenda, it's on our website. It'll tell you how to view this meeting live, or you can telephone in. We do have a quorum. The Mayor, John Creelman, will be here shortly. In the meantime, I will conduct the meeting. For those in the galley, the emergency exits are right straight behind you. These proceedings are being video recorded and broadcast. Councillors may disclose pecuniary interest now or any time during the meeting. And to start, Councillor Manctolo, can you do the land acknowledgement, please?
We would like to begin by respectfully acknowledging that the Town of Mono resides within the traditional territory and ancestral lands of the Tionatani, the Atawandadaran, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe. We also acknowledge that the town resides within the treaty lands named under Treaty 18, the Nottawasaga Purchase of 1818. These traditional territories upon which we live and learn are steeped in rich Indigenous history and traditions. It is with this statement that we declare to honor and respect the past and present connection of Indigenous people with this land, its waterways, and resources.
Thank you.
Can't see if you...
My mic, I'm sorry. We're now going to approve the agenda, and it's been amended, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct. The delegation won't be occurring today on request of the delegate who's unable to make it.
Very well. So with that amendment, do I have a mover and seconder for the agenda? Manctolo and Capes? All in favor? Thank you. Let's approve the agenda. That's one. Okay. The previous minutes. I have a motion to approve the minutes of session 1-2024 as circulated. Are there any, first of all, I need a mover and a seconder. Davey and Capes. Any discussions, any errors? Seeing none. Anyone opposed? That motion passes. Now I have a proclamation. Whereas Black History Month is an opportunity to acknowledge and honor the contributions of Black Canadians, both past and present, and recognize their contributions made to the Town of Mono and Canada. And whereas during Black History Month, we celebrate the many achievements and contributions made by Black Canadians to our collective economic, cultural, social, and political development. And whereas the Town of Mono recognizes and values the contributions and advances that Black Canadians have made and continue to make to Canadian society, and recognize the quest of Black Canadians for equal opportunity and freedom from discrimination in Canada. Now therefore I, Deputy Mayor Fred Nix, on behalf of Council, do hereby proclaim February 2024 as Black History Month in the Town of Mono, and encourage all residents to celebrate our diverse heritage and culture and continue efforts to ensure that Mono is an inclusive community for all, dated the 30th day of January 2024. Yes, Mr. Simpson.
So, and Your Worship, I just want to let Council know that we will be flying the Pan-African flag as of February 1st.
And on that note, I should let the rest of Council know and the audience that the county will be raising the flag at 1 o'clock on February the 1st at 55 Zina Street. I plan to attend. Any of you are welcome to come too. Anyway, that's on this Thursday, February the 1st. With that, I'll hand the gavel over to Mayor Creelman.
Thank you, Fred. Next item on the agenda is question period. Do we have any questions from the gallery today? Bradley? You're on mute. No, you're not. There you go.
Perfect. Hi, everyone. How are you doing today?
Good.
Good. So my name is Brad Mayor Harmon from 22 Old Oak in Purple Hill, Mono. My question today revolves around kind of just an inquiry about how the town plans on moving forward, and if there is any plan as it relates to kind of just the future plans as it relates to allocating budget towards investing in the Purple Hill community. I think obviously the community itself is quite frustrated with the recent decision to kind of remove the budget for any plastic for the, obviously as an example, the ice rink for the 2025 year or 2024 budget. But also just there's been an overwhelming amount of frustration that the community's felt as it relates to just allocating money towards this community. And I guess with the recent change in the amount of kind of the concerns surrounding budget constraints, I guess we're just wanting to know, does the council see this as a top priority to invest in the Purple Hill community, or is this kind of something that's kind of going to be put on the back burner and there's not really a plan to address our concerns in the future?
Kim, I'm wondering if you could clarify the situation with regard to the ice rinks. We have ice rinks this year. The issue is whether we'll have them next year. Is that not correct?
That is correct. The monies for the ice rinks, because of the way the budget falls, the timing of the budget and the timing of the ice rinks, it all depends on whether or not the liners are always purchased the year of. So, in other words, so for 2020, actually the liners are always purchased the year before. So in 2024, we would purchase the liners for 2025 because you have to get them in prior to Christmas so that the residents have them in ample amount of time for whenever the weather dictates the installing of the rinks. With that being said, the actual installing of the rinks many times doesn't happen until late December, many times into January. Such was the case this year. That's when the truckloads of water are purchased. And sometimes rinks will need additional boards or supplies, whatever. So the rinks are between two budget years. That's the way it is. And then there's, so next year in the 2024 budget, we eliminated, because we were asked to cut anywhere and everywhere. One of the things that I could see in our parks was cutting out the skating rinks because of the climate change and the challenges that we're having with all of the days that we don't get to skate. So when I looked at services, I thought, are we really getting value for the money here? And I know when the skating rinks are in, they're incredible. And this year, as every year, there's a phenomenal group of volunteers looking after the rinks. The rinks are in tip-top shape this year. But, you know, all I can say is we were asked to cut. And that's what when we brought our budget to you, I was upfront with what was cut.
Melinda?
Thanks for that explanation, Kim, which I, of course, recall it was only a couple of weeks ago that we did this. You know, it's a budget. And so we're going to look at it, and again, because it crosses both years, we're going to look at it again, of course, in the future. The issue with the broader, the last time that you were here, Mr. Mayor Harmon, about the broader issues for Purple Hill, they're terrific, but we would need, you know, way more public information than just your petition. So that's certainly still in my mind. I think recreation in the town of Mono is paramount. We found that during COVID, that outdoor activities and community and social activities are extremely important just to human health. And so, but we're in a money thing. So you know, it also, at the same time as Kim made that cut, we were having some questions about whether we were going to have the volunteers or not in some of them, some of the parks. And so it seemed to be a reasonable spot to make a modest cut, in that there was a large cut of the overall budget that needed to be made, and every department did something. And so with respect to some of the other cuts from the other departments, Kim's cut was minimal. But I don't see it as a fait accompli that you're never gonna, this is your last year, get out there and skate, because you're never gonna skate in Mono again. But keep bringing it to us, of course, to keep it top of mind, but I don't believe it's gone away.
Any other observations of council?
Thanks for your comments, Brad. You've portrayed this as being non-support of your community, but it's non-support of all the communities that have rinks, if it's non-support. So it's not portrayed as being something that's against Purple Hill at all, and that's certainly not my impression.
Yeah, I don't know if you were able to observe some of our budget discussions, but they were particularly painful this year. And we worked very hard to get to the 6%, and frankly, to me, it's a miracle that we did, given the increases, inflationary increases on you know, 3/4 of the budget, quite frankly, are almost in excess of the 6%. So I don't know how the math worked out, but somehow we managed to do that. And obviously there were difficult decisions to make, and I agree with the assessment that it's not the end of the world from the standpoint of recreational services. But the one thing we did discover subsequent to your delegation to council was there's quite a division of opinion up on Purple Hill as to what is appropriate and what isn't. So I think you'd see us embark on some attempt to have a community meeting or a survey to get to a position where the majority of people up there are satisfied with any actions that we do take.
So, if I may, I guess the concern is that the cost savings is far smaller than the cost savings of the cut is far smaller than the lost volunteer hours that's invested into contributing to this community. And to answer or to address the other comment, when you're talking about the concerns of Purple Hill community, certainly there are a diverse opinion around what we would like to see done in the park. But I think that hopefully you don't delay the survey as a result of the budget cuts, because that's just going to further delay any progress that the community definitely wants to see. But I think the main concern the community has is the feeling of inequity when it comes to the investment in communities within the town of Mono over the last 2 decades. It's not a matter of we need this specifically.
Yeah.
It's a matter of not being heard and not feeling like we're important enough to the town of Mono to get a small portion of the amount of tax dollars we contribute. So
Bradley,
it doesn't matter who you ask within the community,
Yeah.
you
This-
will hear people
if
address
I can interrupt
Town
you.
does not mean to hear
It is
us.
question
And it's
period.
almost like these attempts are ways to delay the inevitable or ignore it entirely. So that's
No,
our
Bradley,
primary concern.
Bradley, this is question period. You've made some good points. I think we're all committed to doing some survey work or some community discussions. And your point is made, and I think we will probably do those consultations prior to the next budget cycle.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? I see. Yes,
We have one question that was submitted online, Your Worship.
yes.
Okay. And That question is specifically with respect to ice rinks again. The question being, does the current Mono Council and department heads want to completely abolish outdoor skating at all Town of Mono facilities?
It's Mike Park. Yeah. I think the answer is no. But again, I think the context of our decision in this last budget cycle has been explained. And, you know, maybe there's an opportunity prior to next year's budget cycle to resurrect this idea or explore it. But one of the locations that was at risk of not having enough volunteer labor was in fact Mono Center. And that was an issue that we were facing at the very same time that we were talking about the budget. Go ahead.
I'd like to thank Mr. Park for his question, and also for, I gather, his years of service at the Mono Center ice rink. And whenever we have a volunteer thing and there's a changing of the guard, it's tricky. It's tricky to find somebody to step in who immediately has the same dedication and time to the project. So I gather, though, listening to Kim, that we do have that people did step up in Mr. Park's community, and so I don't think that the question is fair. I think the question is an angry question wanting an answer, and so the answer is that we're still looking at it. And the other thing that really needs to be considered, I think, is the whole, climate change thing. That how yes, we've done a great job as a community, or you have done a great, Mr. Park, have done a great job of keeping our ice rinks going. Our Winterfest is coming up, and the ice has always been in, and it's been terrific for these events that we have, and the kiddies in the hood. But are we getting, how many days a year are we getting as we're going forward? This is something that, not to say that for 2025, look at, it's melting and we can't do it. But I do think that it's something that we have to look at and keep statistics for, as to whether, that's the best use of the pad for all of the effort. I can imagine that when we buy the water, and we get the ice, and then it melts, it's a huge disappointment. So I'd like the new volunteers to really keep tabulating on how, oh, and Kim has got her hand up, maybe can answer that.
Just for clarification, for liability reasons, the town of Mono has to provide inspection services on each one of our rinks on a daily basis. That's 7 days per week. We do have to inspect and keep records of each ice rink, which we do. We have staff go out and inspect. So along with those inspections, we are also keeping a tabulation of skating days. So we started from the first day that each ice rink opened, and we're keeping a tabulation of skating days.
Maybe at some point we could see those numbers year over year. I have a question. Why do we buy water when we have a pumper truck and fire departments with pumper trucks?
Well, we purchase water because when you put the liner down, there's a challenge of being able to keep it down when you first lay it. So the water comes, we buy 2 to 3 truckloads depending on the location.
What I'm saying is that we already have the truck capacity within the roads department, do we not?
It's not something that we've looked at.
The tankers aren't on in the winter.
I see.
They're ready
Okay.
for sand, salt sand.
Okay, I get it. Sorry, just inquiring minds want to know. Okay, if that's, there's no further questions, the delegation at 9:15 has unfortunately canceled. They have asked to be rescheduled. So we're on to unfinished business and deferred items. The list, Fred?
Yeah, I thought I had a discussion with somebody. Is it appropriate at this point, because this isn't on the agenda specifically, but could we consider adding an item to this list? Well, okay, well then, the item.
Either now or new business, one or the other.
Okay, let me just put this out as a thought, and whenever it's appropriate, I'd like this added to the list, if the clerk is satisfied. I would like to know the pros and cons of using the county building services versus contracted building services, because we have one municipality in Dufferin that has given notice they are dropping the county. I'm not exactly sure where they're going. When I talked to them, it sounded like maybe they could find a private firm, they could contract this out. I don't know anything about it, Mr. Simpson, but I wonder, just in fairness to our taxpayers, I'm not looking for a major study, just a simple, what are the pros and cons? Would it be cheaper to go to a private contractor?
And Deputy Mayor, you did raise that at the last meeting. Council did vote on it to add it to the list, and it is on the list. The list is sorted, though, by who it's assigned to, followed by priority. So you'll find it midway on the list. It's labeled as number 16. Numbers are on the far
16?
left. 16,
Yeah,
1
on
6.
the left side.
County Building Services.
I've only got 12, 16. Oh,
Yeah, because of the sort,
apologies.
they're not in
I totally
the
missed
order
that.
when they were added.
So it's on the list, that's wonderful, that's excellent, thank you. I withdraw my comments.
Okay. This next item is the Livestock Guardian Dog Bylaw, second reading. Fred, anything to add to that before I read the motion?
I think it's fairly straightforward. Council asked for 2 changes to the bylaw. Those changes are incorporated, so they are, the first was that livestock guardian dogs don't automatically receive an exemption to the maximum of 3 dogs per property, but there is a provision for seeking a exemption to that. That would go before council if someone made that request. And the other change was to have a higher license fee for non-spayed or neutered animals. So that change is in here as well.
Yep. Any question? Elaine?
Which is as per our normal practice, right? The spayed, non-spayed fee.
Yeah, so I'm proposing, and this draft has in it, the exact same fees as we charge for any other dogs, $30 or $20, spaded, neutered versus
Right.
non.
Great. Well, just thank you. I appreciate the amendments.
Thank you. Anything else, Ralph?
Yeah, I'm a little late to the party here, but I have another suggested change. When you look up guard dogs, and you look up livestock guard dogs or livestock guardian dogs, or personal guard dogs, it's kind of confusing. So a guard dog can be a livestock guard dog, or it can be a personal guard dog. And I think that when you get down to number 4, where it's, I'm sorry, not number 4, number 5, which is guard dogs, that we should make it clear that we're talking about personal guard dogs there. Livestock guard dogs, we've identified them, but this has not defined as what type of guard dog we're talking about there. So I would suggest that it would be helpful to call this livestock guard dogs, and keep that designation throughout that number 5.
Thanks very much. Yeah, there is in the definitions that a guard dog is a commercial unattended dog. And so households don't have guard dog. You may think you're a guard dog and you should put up a sign if it's gonna bite somebody or whatever, but you don't, it doesn't classify as a guard dog unless it's in our definitions. And then we're talking about livestock guardian. So I think in the definitions, it's already there. Clerk?
Yeah, so the bylaw currently has a definition for guard dog. It has one for guide dog, and we will be adding a definition for livestock guardian dog. So they are all currently defined.
Yes, I'm aware of that, and I think they're inadequate.
The definitions?
Yeah, because the guard dog is defined as a dog that's left unattended for any portion of the day.
On a commercial or industrial property.
But guard dogs can also be present on private property, and are.
Not according to our so that would be a change to the bylaw, and I agree with you, Councillor Manctolo, that there may be some other amendments that could be considered in our canine or our dog bylaw. Council had requested that we only at this time address livestock guardian dogs. So council may want to have this bylaw undergo a more comprehensive review in addition to these amendments.
Well, I'm not sure that we should not take this as an advantage to tidy up the document that we have here. And if you look at the Kennel Club of America, it's not clear that a guard dog is just a personal guard dog. And also the terminology for livestock guard dogs is not clear either. I know this particularly because we had one on our farm for our sheep. They're often called just called livestock guard dogs or guard dogs, where we've gone to the term guardian dog, which is also quite acceptable. So either one is acceptable. So there is an issue here, I think, of nomenclature. If you don't want to change it here and now because you want to stay just with dealing with livestock guard dogs, that's fine.
Thanks very much for your comments, Councillor Manctolo. I think that they're reading through the dogs and reading through, it bugs me, all of the dogs in Dufferin County who are loose all of the time and lost. You know, when I first moved here, my dogs got out a couple times. You fixed that problem. Why you would still keep having a problem, I don't know. So the idea of dogs not being licensed and dogs not being on leashes, and I was chatting with someone who lives across from a park the other day, and somebody came across with a dog who was from out of town, and the dog was off leash, and the dog came over to, you know, play with their dog, who, yes, is not a guard dog, but that is what the dog does on the farm. And the dog ate one of her chickens. So, yeah, I mean, and where's your recourse on that, you know? So I do think you're right, but I think at the time that this was brought up, when we got a letter from the Sheep Farmers of Ontario, the association, there was a specific goal to just add livestock because we're rural. So if you want to add it to our list of 16 items, I think it's a great idea. But I think today we were only, because there are lots of issues in it that could be really tightened up, I think given the population increasing, the dog population increasing in our world now since this was first written.
So what is the wish of council to proceed with the amendments that deal specifically with the livestock guardian dogs, or defer this for a rewrite of the rest of the bylaw?
I would deal with what we've got.
Deal with this and then add it to our list.
In other words, one item falls off the list and another one that looks almost identical goes back on.
Well, I think we need to look at this in terms of priority. The priority was to address the livestock guardian dogs. Let's do that.
Okay.
If at some time down the road, somebody wants to bring the idea that we need to review the entire dog bylaw, then we should. But we've got a lot of priorities on there now. I'm not sure that tweaking the existing dog bylaw is a top priority. Maybe it is, but I think we should treat them separately for now. Because I know that when I first came to this conversation, I had lots of ideas about the dog bylaw and was advised that we were only looking at the livestock guardian portion of the bylaw. So I think we should consider this done and off the
So
unfinished business list, and then at some other day, bring that forward.
I have a motion then, if I can read it, and we'll see whether it gets a mover, seconder, and support. That we give second and third and final readings to a bylaw to amend bylaw 2002-62, being a bylaw to provide for the keeping, control, and licensing of dogs in the town of Mono, that it be signed by the mayor and clerk for the town of Mono, sealed and engrossed in the bylaw book. Do I have a mover? I see Councillor Capes and Deputy Mayor Nix seconds. Any further discussion?
Our motion doesn't, I listened
Doesn't-
carefully, but it doesn't specifically say livestock guard dogs. It just says dogs in the,
We're just amending the bylaw, but it,
okay.
Yeah.
So that's appropriate language, right?
Yeah, because what you're passing is the amending bylaw. So the bylaw specifically only lists the amendments, and those amendments all pertain to livestock guardian dogs.
okay, Ralph?
Well, the only reason for adding what I've done is because we've added confusion by adding another type of guard dog to this bylaw.
But that was the intent all along.
But you should be then making it clear which type of guard dog you're talking about.
I think the wording of the actual bylaw that we would be signing if this motion passes specifies only the animal guardian dogs.
Yes, it does, but this is then added to the present bylaw, which already has a guard dog there. And
But
so,
it's a different kind of guard dog.
It's a different definition,
well, it's not clear what kind of guard dog it is.
The definition says on a commercial property or business property.
Yeah, and that, well,
That's different than a private property or a farm.
Yeah.
okay, I rest my case.
No, I think Councillor Mangflow has raised some good points, but I agree with Councillor Capes. I think we should pass this with the amendment as it is now, and if there's some future tweaking we need to do, maybe Councillor Mangflow can write it out and we'll consider it.
So we're dropping one item from our to-do list and we're adding a new one and giving. Okay, fine.
This one's sick.
No, this, once we deal with this motion, I'm just saying that we can stroke out one of the items on the to-do list, and if there's a wish to add an overhaul of the dog bylaw, it can go on the list and maybe get a different priority.
Can I ask a
And just to clarify, again, because it's a bit of a pet peeve, the dogs loose, this goes, when we do one of these amendments, it goes on our website, like, this is a new thing, you're gonna get caught, don't do it wrong and all that, right? We are bringing the dog bylaw to the front and center for a smidge of time, it doesn't really, yes?
So what we'll do is we'll physically amend, so this bylaw will get posted, and it will, of course, be advertised in some of our more common channels. The dog bylaw itself will be physically amended and re-uploaded. I'm not sure a lot of people go to our website to pull this particular bylaw. They'll call and ask. And of course, if they call and ask, they'll be informed. And obviously, bylaw enforcement is aware of this. Most of our complaints about dogs are dogs running at loose. So those provisions aren't changed in any way.
The other thing, though, that is in this, that guardian dogs are allowed to do, and are exempt from the other things, is the barking thing, right? I mean, that's what they're supposed to be doing, they're barking to keep the coyotes away from the chickens, right? So, you want to also have it front and center that you can't use it as an argument that your barking dog is helping unless you actually have a farm, keeping the coyotes away from you. Exactly, thank you.
And the timing of this is intentional, brought to council at this time, because it's just ahead of the renewal of dog licenses. So we will be promoting that there is this new license in the rural areas, and their criteria. You know, you have to be a registered farmer, and it has to be for this purpose. So, because those renewals start, new licenses are required by April 1st, so we start promoting in February, time to start renewing your licenses.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor with a mover and a seconder. Any opposed to the motion? Seeing none, the motion passes. On to bylaws correspondence, purchasing property and Mono working group. Who would like to lead off? Elaine?
So I would like to just express our gratitude. Melinda and I met with Elaine Kehoe and Courtney Clarkson in our town, two real estate agents who were very gracious in giving us their time and their expertise to draft up a very simple, friendly, one-pager that highlights what people might not think about when they're moving to a rural area, coming from, you know, a city that's got water and sewage and all of that supplied, et cetera, et cetera. And so this, we're very appreciative. We were very happy with what came forward, and it was very thoughtful, and we believe that this is something that, because of the way it is presented, that other realtors will actually use it, will want to use it. And if it's on our website, it invites people to take a further look at things. And I know that we deliberated on this, and it's a great partnership. So I don't know if anybody wants to come forward and make any comments, or?
Elaine? Good morning.
Elaine Kehoe, 388193 Mono Center Road. I think what's going to be important is how we implement it. And some of the suggestions that Courtney and I talked about is notifying the various real estate boards within the area and going as far as Grey County, Simcoe, Dufferin, Toronto, especially Toronto, Mississauga. There's also, Courtney and I both use a system called Constant Contacts. This is a system where we have literally thousands of real estate agents' email addresses within our contact list. And with your direction, because we would certainly not want to be perceived as telling agents what to do, because that's not our job. With your direction, we would send out the format exactly as it appears on your website to all of the agents saying, you know, if you're thinking of selling a property or listing a property in Mono, read this first. It's something very polite and nice. That would at least get it out there. But I think the important one would be coming from council, directing or requesting, pardon me, not directing, requesting the various boards to also post it as notice to their agents.
Fred?
Yeah, I read it, and I'm quite impressed with this, Elaine, but I have a couple of suggestions, and it may sound like I'm being critical. I'm not. I just, as I read it, I thought, you've missed something, okay? When you list the zoning, environmental, water, land use, and other regulations, that's fine, but I would disagree with you including the Bruce Trail and snowmobile trails in that section. What the thought I had is, if I'm thinking of buying a house in Mono, yeah, you need to know those regulations that control land use. I would actually put down Town of Mono official plan,
Yes.
Niagara Escarpment,
Niagara Escarpment is there.
okay, it's there, but I put Town of Mono official plan, and unfortunately, you should probably also include the Dufferin County official plan, not that, anyway, but put that aside.
It's the same.
Yeah, it's basically the same. But then what I would do is have another category. Okay, you're talking to people who are thinking of moving to Mono. Recreation, and then I thought of all the things you could list, but you don't have enough space for that. So maybe just recreation, and then maybe a direction to the Town of Mono's website where they could learn about the Bruce Trail, snowmobile trails, the what do you call it, the basketball, or no, tennis court club, the lawn bowling club, the Mono Nordic Cross Country Ski Club. Like, you don't have room to list that all here, but if you could point someone who's thinking of moving to Mono to something on our website that listed all those activities, that would influence me as to whether or not I wanted to move to Mono.
I think that's a very good suggestion, and this was posted prior to this presentation, so yes, it could be amended, but now it's already out there.
Well, that's okay.
Can I just clarify, the reason why the Bruce Trail and the snowmobile trails are on there is not necessarily come to Mono because we have great recreation, these are all our facilities. It's because if you're gonna buy a piece of property, the Bruce Trail may be right next door. Or there may be a snowmobile trail that is going through your property. So don't buy it and then complain about it. Which is along the lines of, don't buy something that's in the NVCA and then try to build the Taj Mahal, right? Like it is a part of that.
David?
Yeah, thanks. That's a good presentation. Just briefly, there was some discussion when we had visited this a few years back, if you can hear me, to look at a QR code system on these real estate signs. So someone could then see that information that's in the implementation plan through a QR code system. Devil's in the details, but it's probably possible. It would need a little more examination to look at it.
Thank you for that.
I think, thank you for that clarification. So I think it wasn't as an attraction, it's so people can take a look at what regulations there might be around. And I agree with you that we missed the official plan, and that's on me. So I'm not sure if we want to add recreation to this, but Mike, you have.
Thank you, Your Worship, through to Councillor Cape. So appreciate the work on this. This was a council initiative. It hasn't been vetted through staff yet, though I think that would be a very appropriate thing. Our branding guide and everything has to be applied to this. And then we'll run it through clerical. But the biggest thing it needs to go through is departments. We're really we're getting close to meshing this with our welcoming guide, and there's duplicate information in here, and we want to make sure that we're clear. If I understand correctly from the group, you want to stay with a one-pager, which makes sense. But I think staff would like to respond with respect to our outreach and how that goes, with respect to Deputy Mayor Nix's response on the OPA. But I really would like this to go through staff and get down to the one-pager that would satisfy everybody.
Thank you, Mike, for that. And we did actually consult on the town branding, so it is in the right font. So that was one thing we did. We didn't think of all the other ramifications. And yes, we do have the welcome package, which is when people have already purchased. Now here's the full deal with however many 60 pages it is. But this is meant as something that could be included with a listing, so that people know this before they even buy. So, yeah, I think there is.
Absolutely, and
yeah.
I think Councillor Capes, this is how this started, was the real estate agents wanting to know what they can do, or sorry, what their potential purchasers can do on the property. That stemmed with an impact on the planning department, and I think that's how this started, is to try and get real estate agents to get this document to their clients and help them through the unknowns of country living.
Ralph?
I think, I appreciate Mike's comments about needing to go through staff. And what did you mean by saying this has already been posted?
Well, it's already on your website, which was a surprise to me.
Okay, all right, well, that's modifiable. Yeah.
But it should be taken off. If there is going to be subject to change, we don't want it out there if there's change required. I thought that we would do the presentation, and then after suggestions and changes as being recommended, it would have been posted, but it was posted first.
Mike?
Your Worship, through to Ms. Kehoe, so it is on the website, but it's buried inside the agenda. So it's an agenda item. It's an agenda item that's an attachment. And without a resolution of approval or anything, it sits as a document in flux, I guess.
Okay.
So it's not on the planning page or the welcome to Mono page by any means. Yeah, so it's an item.
So I have two, I think, modest suggestions, and they can be covered off by two sentences. The original impetus for this came from a concern that many of us have that real estate agents from afar are not necessarily as candid with their clientele as maybe they ought to be. Often we get the excuse, oh, the real estate agent told me I could do this. And, you know, it's clearly contrary to zoning, it's clearly contrary to the things that we hold dear in the town. And the other concern, I think, is having to do with bylaw enforcement. I think we need to say two things. Number one, both to the agents and to their clients, do your due diligence. I think we have to have a very clear statement there that you know, we'll answer questions about what the taxes are on the property, we'll answer questions about what the zoning is on the property, but, you know, do your due diligence. Don't come to us later and say, oh, I didn't know. No one told me, the agent didn't tell me. And if I've talked to one person, I've talked to a dozen where they were led to believe something by a real estate agent who has no roots in this community, that they could just go ahead and do something. And a perfect example of that was the property down on Highway 9 that was purchased and bulldozed almost immediately in expectation of being able to put in a trucking yard. And had those people been informed correctly, maybe they wouldn't have done that.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, well, that's exactly why we had all of the headings that we had, and the official plan is a key one that we forgot there on the top, and in our little document with respect to having an equal number, the two little official plans of the town and the county would fit in there. But we do have the important bylaws, and so I guess it comes with your introductory when you're sending it out in your constant contact to all these realtors, you know. News flash, don't say you didn't know, here it is,
Yeah.
right?
I don't know that you need to go that far, but I think if you have something in there about do your due diligence and something to the effect that we enforce our bylaws. And I think that's important to say. Not simply list the bylaws, but the fact is we enforce our bylaws. And that keeps us on our toes as well.
But the understanding right now is that nothing will be sent until this has been reviewed by staff, am I correct?
Yeah, I think it's got to go through that and then come
Okay.
back to us.
So we will-
And go back to you,
Okay,
go back to the committee. Ralph?
Thanks for your work on this.
Yeah, thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Just to comment on the implementation plan, which I think is excellent. Number 4, I think, is a private matter. That's where you and Courtney are going to send that out. Seems to me that that's in your jurisdiction. You can send out what you want to other friends. It's not coming from the town. Is that correct? Am I getting that right, Mike?
I'm, with respect, I would hesitate to instruct another agent what to do. It's not our position. However, looking out for the best interest of the town, if the town was to suggest that we have the contacts and the ability to send it out as an information statement, but I certainly wouldn't instruct somebody else how to do their job.
I think it's more authoritative if we sign off on it and then avail ourselves of that wonderful list that you have. I think that sounds great.
Thank
me.
you.
And your worship, we could run afoul of the Canadian anti-spam legislation if we sent it through in a method as suggested. I think this has to be distributed by the town of Mono. I know it's
let's look
I
into-
know it's
let's look
federal
into that.
legislation, but, you know, we,
Let's look into that. I mean, there's nothing to prevent somebody with the resource that you have receiving it from the town and then forwarding it. I mean, you may run the risk, but we don't. And you know, if they were enforcing that anti-spam legislation, I'd fall over in a dead faint right now. Yeah.
Well, because also your list, in order to have a list, the spam thing is that the people acknowledge that they are willing to receive, or this is why there's that unsubscribe thing now that doesn't work, but they're willing to receive something from you.
That's correct. Pertaining to real estate issues and matters, and this definitely is a real estate issue matter.
Yeah. Sort of like a no-call list, you know, like that really works well.
I think it's a private thing that she can do what she wants with some information she has.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
I think this is here because it is an offer. They're offering that they
Yeah.
will
Well, I think it's a great
do
offer.
this,
Yeah.
which is great, to help us implement this. And then subsequently, there's a small email blurb for the town to use to send to other real estate offices. So
And
we
then
can
where it
review
goes from
all of
there?
that and review it with staff and make sure we're not gonna get into trouble, and it's great. Thank you.
Thank you again for your work. That's great. So I did have a motion, but given the trajectory of the debate, I think the motion would have us receive the working group document and direct staff to incorporate it into the town's communication plan for new and prospective home buyers, I think.
And in that motion, I intended the word incorporate to mean to then go through a process of review as part of being incorporated. So all those points that were raised here, including the CAO,
Well, we
would
want
be
to see
part
it
of
before you
incorporated.
incorporate it. I mean, that's my concern, is that the way it reads, we're giving you permission to incorporate it. I think it needs to come back to us. It needs to go back to the committee.
Without a doubt, it would have to come back to council
Okay.
for review.
So why don't we just simply receive it and instruct staff to follow up on, yeah.
Let's just receive it.
So we're moving to receive and instructing staff to follow up on a direction from council. Any mover on that, Elaine? Seconded by Melinda. Any opposed?
So, sorry, your worship, I had my head down, I didn't see who moved and.
Elaine and Melinda.
Elaine and Melinda.
And no opposition. So the next item on the agenda is the Island Lake Drinking Water System Improvement Project. And who would like to address that? Mike, I think you're the author of the memo.
Thank you, Your Worship. As council can see with the report that I provided and the appendices, the Town of Mono Drinking Water Operating Authority and ourselves have been dealing with an arsenic concentrations in the Island Lake drinking water system. I've outlined the Ministry of the Environment changes that they've made that caused some concern with the Town of Mono. I outlined, provided some appendices with respect to all the testing, the projects, the work that's been done on the background of this, and gave council an update on a receipt of a grant application from the province and the federal government that we had received in 2021, I believe, and that was subsequently a transfer payment agreement was entered into by council in 2022. The report is meant to provide as much background on this as possible, and it's really to notify council that we'll be commencing with an environmental assessment to provide, hopefully provide the best, well, to provide what the best solution and moving forward is for the Town of Mono. This may extrapolate into the Cardinal Woods drinking water system as well. They are two separate systems right now, but to be clear, the Cardinal Woods system does not contain arsenic. And to be very clear, the Island Lake system does not contain arsenic at a level that is currently considered to be a health hazard. So, so it's a major project within the water department, and this report is provided to council for notification. So.
Fred, then Elaine, and then Melinda.
Just one thing, I mean, it's quite an impressive report. But I had trouble understanding at the end of your report, this is on page 5, your point number 4, removal of all hard water characteristics would be a positive treatment outcome with the elimination of brown water and the requirement for softeners with a direct compliance. I'm just sorry, Mike, I got lost in terms of what you're saying there.
So the removal of arsenic is twofold. Obviously, removal of arsenic is at the forefront, but the positive side effect of that is the reduction of iron and all other contaminants as well. So the existence of iron and manganese in the Island Lake system causes hard water.
I got that. And
And-
then the
and-
next
and your
phrase,
sti-
the requirements for softeners, are you
So
talking
your
about?
strategic plan outlines reduced low-salt softeners and/or, because when softeners purge, they put salt water back into to the ground or into the wastewater treatment system. So council had identified this as a concern. Cardinal Woods is all on private septic. We hope that, you know, the salt purging of these softeners are gone overland, but they're good chance they're in the septic system. So council took it upon themselves at that day to look at the reintroduction of softening salts into the groundwater.
Okay, so just so that I understand, you're saying if we go ahead with this and remove the brown water, which has arsenic in it, we're lowering the loads on the private residential water softeners so they purge less often? Is that what you're saying?
Or not required at all because we're starting to remove the hardness from the
But-
water.
The water softeners usually are on a timer. I mean, they're gonna purge every 4 weeks, whether there's brown water or not.
Yes, they will, but you won't need to treat the water to make it softer if we've stripped out the iron and the manganese at the pump houses.
The water softeners won't know that. They'll just go,
You'll start to see,
mine doesn't.
Mine does.
Okay.
as they move through the process, the softeners, your hardness will be knocked down to a very low level, that your salt consumption will be down to minuscule amounts.
All right, I guess I learned something. I mean, my water softener doesn't know enough to do that. It just goes every, whatever it was.
Just turn it off.
Yeah, that's right. But it doesn't go by how hard the water is. It's set on a timer and or volume.
It depends how old it is. Yes? Sorry.
So thank you, Mike, for this detailed report. I very much appreciate it, and I appreciate that it's proactive in taking a risk-based approach. And yes, I would not wish to have anything less than removal so that we don't have a negative occurrence, because people do trust and expect protection over their water. And so I think that's utmost. And I did like the side benefits. I think that's great. What I'm not sure of when we move forward with this Schedule B Class EA, why would we consider some of these alternatives that, if the focus is to remove arsenic from that specific well and location, why would we exert all the energy and expense to review things that I don't think we would practically want to take on? So those are 2C, 2E, 3, 4, and 5. Just curious
So
why we would do
just
that.
to elaborate a little, so all 5 wells in the Island Lake system contain arsenic. Well PW1 was removed and taken offline in 2021 because it did contain normal results that were higher than the regulated amount. So that's just to clarify that all 5 wells do produce arsenic.
Yeah, 5 wells.
With respect to why, contained in the Walkerton Clean Water Report, you'll see that we went through a filtration project with very many different additives of chlorine to try and see what the best result was, different parts per million filters. One of the downfalls of that project, while it did recommend Omni-Sorb or Sorb 33 as a sand filter size, you have to appreciate what that looks like. So if you look at your pool, you have a sand filter this big. We're dealing with 2,000 residents that drink this water. We're dealing with way more water than that's filtered through a pool. And the results of the filtration is pure arsenic, is what we get. So we have disposal fees. We have to investigate the cost We don't know at this time, while we did some tests and we're still working with Walkerton, we don't know how long these filters last. We have a good idea, but these filters are not your standard 12-inch filter that you see in your basement. You put your arms around them, and they do contain pure arsenic. So the options that we're looking at, and those are described in the EA process. We'll be looking at new, fresh, clean wells. The short term, the immediate impact of new wells may be cheaper over the long run of running the arsenic. We may be looking at the addition of a treatment plant facility, which is a new building, to run raw water back to it. That comes with a very significant cost to create a filtration plant. So, and that's why we're expanding our look and depth into the Cardinal Woods system, because it is cleaner water, or it's a different based groundwater. So the EA will really take us to all the solutions. It will choose the best solution, and it will look at short and long-term financial impact on the drinking water. So the biggest concern right now with our steps that we've taken to date are the disposal of pure arsenic and the cost of that. Shelburne's had a similar problem. They're able to utilize their wastewater treatment plant to slowly dilute and send the arsenic into the wastewater treatment stream. As council's aware, Town of Mono does not have a wastewater treatment plant. So those are some of the key issues that will be vetted and looked through in detail, and with the Class EA.
So does the Class EA qualify for monies that we've been given by way of grant or development charge monies? Is it?
So it has nothing to do with gross, so we can't go through the development charge. But it was identified as step one in the grant application, that we would go through a Class EA to come up with the best solution. While we did talk about, excuse me, the grant application did identify potential expansion to the water system facilities. It did talk about filtration, but really the key component was the Class EA to find out the best solution for the Island Lake drinking water system.
Linda, and then Ralph.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you very much for the report. It's nice to have it all laid out back again. Since I've been on council, you keep coming and telling us about this. And telling us also that we have already received, and I'm trying to remember while I'm sitting here, and I didn't want to flip and not be, it's $3 million?
So the federal
3.6?
provincial contribution is 3.666,
Right.
and I think the Council Resolution 1722 approved the 1.33 Town of Mono contribution from reserves, and the treasurer has confirmed
Right.
confirmed that that's there.
So we have about $5 million, right? And it sounds like as we go further and further into this, because we don't want to make a mistake, I appreciate that you're taking a lot of time. I'm concerned. The letter from Burnside was in August. We're now talking about it in, damn near February. Today's the last day of January. Everything is going to cost more and more and more money as we finally make a final decision as to what's best for the town of Mono, and knowing that there's, development and, there's I appreciate there's lots and lots of balls in the air. We're not going to be able to afford the resolution that you come up with. Is the government going to give us more money, or is that when you have applied for a grant for a problem, does that make it that, there you go, that's the money you get, make it work?
So the cost estimate is 2020, so you are correct on very similar comments with respect to our budget process, how the cost of yesterday is not what it is today. $5 million was the maximum requirement that we could apply for at that time, so we went through the maximum, we received the maximum. As we work through the EA process, we will start to get some 2023 dollars with respect to the fixing of it. This is very similar to a situation that Director of Recreation ran into with her granting on tennis courts as well, right? She was, I believe we had to cut the lighting because of it. So $100 cut, $100,000 cut. But yeah, you're 100% correct. But until we know what the actual plan is, we won't know what situation we're in. As we do our reporting to the province and the federal, we do put our risk in there. We've identified the changes in the economy, the changes in materials and goods and services as our big risk right now. How the province, we're not going to be the only municipality in this situation, and how the province proceeds forward is unknown at this time, but it has been identified as a large concern from the town of Mono that we won't be able to afford what we originally intended to do. And as we move through the process, I don't think that there would be anything, there would be no harm in us approaching the province early on for identification of a need for more funding.
My questions are financial, and there are two. Do we have an estimate for the EA that's proposed by Burnside?
So the EA on the island lakeside is going to roughly be around $100,000.
But this is, this proposal of Burnside includes Cardinal Woods and potentially being tied into Orangeville or Peel or?
Into Orangeville was one of the
so the
comments,
100,000.
one of the potential solutions. So as we extrapolate into the Cardinal Woods system, as we work through the EA, it could extrapolate into the Cardinal Woods system. So that price will start to change as we move into the Cardinal Woods system. But this price does include drilling and some sampling wells.
So
Test wells, sorry.
Sorry, thank you. And that EA, I think from your previous comment, that will be paid from this grant.
Correct.
Yes. And a town's contribution to the grant is 27% of the total. So will we be paying that 27,000? Will we be on the hook for money right away?
We will submit, as we submit our invoices and so forth to the government, we will be provided with the 73% return on those submissions.
So we'll be on the hook for the 27%?
As we move through the process.
As we move through the process?
Yes.
Yep. Thank you.
Fred? Do the taxpayers pay that 27% or the people on the water system?
So these are local services. It's a local service to our drinking water system, so that runs through the water budget, which is separated from the town budget.
That's good. Thank you.
And the reserve contribution I'm speaking to is the water reserve, which supports the drinking water.
Okay. Any other questions on this?
Excuse me, just an editorial.
Sorry.
This just, not only do we worry about wastewater when we talk about development in Mono, but supply, right? A lot of, when we took the water tour, was the idea that there was extra capacity within these water supply that we have. And so with extra capacity requires extra or ongoing, like, it would, whatever our solution is, if we see that there's extra capacity in the spot that we already have, the solution needs to be, we need to handle if there had been any extra, right? Like the idea that there's a development coming that's near Island Lake. And the idea, I thought, perhaps I'm wrong, that the supply that we have is, the actual volume of the supply is ample enough to supply more houses in that area. Am I incorrect?
So we're regulated on what we can pump from the ground, but our capacity and supply is based on the number of houses, the size of our reservoirs, and the ability to get that water out to the taps. So that's a very broad engineering question that you're asking.
Okay.
That would take a lot of review. But at the present time, with respect to, in my opinion, with respect to Cardinal Woods and Island Lake, our consumers are using the available water, and there is and we have firm capacity, which basically means we can satisfy those numbers, and any excuse me, any expansion to our water systems would result in detailed assessment studies, which in my opinion will result in more wells and more capacity.
Okay, great, thank you.
Anything else? I don't see a motion to receive this.
It was provided to council really as as just that.
Okay.
To receive, I didn't want council to get, there will be newspaper ads, there will be, I believe there's a public information center, and there will be opportunities for all the residents in the town, for that matter. Outside consultants, Orangeville will have a chance to speak to this as well, and I wanted to make sure council was aware. I promised council, I believe a year ago, that I would get this to you, and it took some time, but we were trying to get through the Walkerton study on this, and it's really notification for council.
Okay. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the... Sorry? Short break? Yeah, absolutely. 10 minutes?
Do we have a break?
Yeah. I'm not that brutal a taskmaster.
We are back live.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the EV chargers grant application, Ministry of Transportation. Who would like to lead off on this? I think it's fairly self-explanatory and gives us a potential of putting EV chargers at both of our recreation centers.
Thank you, Your Worship. Really, the only one thing I would like to say, I did call it a negative that Kim will be losing 4 spots, but quite frankly, I think we're starting to see that. I would harbor a guess there's a couple electrical vehicles in the parking lot right now. And there's probably, you know, you're starting to see electrical vehicles in parking lots for all functions. So I don't know if it's a true negative for Kim, because I think some of her users will be driving electric, and we'll eventually get to see them. Sorry, she didn't get to hear the good news.
One of the negatives that I've heard recently is that people will park their car to be charged and go off and have lunch. And they're actually developing schemes whereby if you're parked there beyond the length of time it needs to charge, you're going to pay extra, because these spots are being hogged.
John, your program is on your iPhone, it tells you when you're charged.
Okay, but people are ignoring that.
Yeah.
And they're just hogging the spot as a regular parking spot.
Yeah. Thank you very much for this, and this is fun that we're, you know, availing and the climate's changing and all that. I don't know that this is a really good idea. I think that it is a big negative that Kim is losing a couple of spots to in our recreation center, because our parking lots in recreation, I think we haven't really paid attention to what's going on in our parking lots. At the Menorah parking lot, there is a building that's smack in the middle that took a bunch of spots away already. Town of Mono gets no money or anything from that at all, and people park there, and I don't understand how that went through, that the town, only because, again, I'm on my soapbox of that we need to come up with an idea of some way of innovative to get some revenue. And so giving away our stuff just doesn't make any sense. So I don't know. I think that it is, we've already lost a couple of spots, and I do worry that these are level 2 or level 3, no, they're level 2 chargers, and that it is. It says specifically in your letter that they're meant to be, or somewhere in what I read, there's meant to be where people are going to spend several hours being parked, which is why it makes sense to put it in a recreation, because you know people are going to go off for their 2-hour hike or whatever. But it is, I think, a big concern. And our Menorah Park is, as you know, close to a much higher populated area. And so is it really going to be Menorah Park people who are using it? Is it going to be people who can, because we've got some businesses around there, people who can, you know, hog it? And in our Mono Center, which the new tennis courts are fantastic. The new parking lot is maybe not so much. Let's wait and see how our Winterfest goes on Sunday when we have our big event, to see whether there is adequate parking. My concern is that we already don't have adequate parking in our new setup, and it's full often of people who are avoiding using Monocliff's paying. And we've limited the parking around, and so we have large volumes of people parked there, unless we go out of our way because it's a wedding and put up pylons to say that, you know, even the people who are paying us. And so I kind of, this is great that we're adding new things to our parking lots and stuff, but I think that maybe it begs another look at maybe permitting parking in town, or control of our parking in some way, and policing these new EV chargers. But it just begs questions for me.
Ralph?
I have a few questions. Mike, do we have any information about the frequency of usage of the current chargers that are in our town parking lot here?
We do, and oh my gosh, I'm pulling from memory. I think it's on our climate change website. the 2021 and 2022, but I can't recall. But we do have that, and I can tell you it's low. It's low, but I do know that I do know that the appropriateness of the location seems to be the biggest, brings the best turnaround. For example, the Alder Center, I believe, has one of the highest usage. So your arena, your hockey arena. The location at the town hall here, the odds of a resident spending 2 hours here is slim.
Yep.
And location, definitely. And I think to Councillor Davey, concern with Monora. Monora, I think, is going to be a tough one because you have to, the province is going to assess if there's another charger within a 5-kilometer range. And I believe that the car dealerships are all starting to add electric charging stations along just at Monora Park Drive there. So we may be bounced off that one at Monora, even though the parking is probably the better of Mono Center and Monora, and the options for use, recreation, and the ability the options for use are better at Monora, I think. We are hindered at Mono Center, no doubt, with respect to parking availability.
The second question is, the installation, this is a 7.2 kilowatt installation we have here, which gives, it varies depending on your car, but maybe 40 kilometers per hour of charging. What's the proposal for the new ones that you're proposing now? I think they can be up to 19 and still be a level 2, as I'm sure you know.
Sorry, I'm just getting to the grant chart with respect to the.
While you're doing that, I'll make some comments on my feeling about a level 2 is that it's probably going to become. I've been wrong before, but it's probably going to become a has-been because it's so slow. Level 2 is the same thing as I have at my home, and I charge overnight for the whole night. You've indicated in your first paragraph that will it support long-distance travel, which it really doesn't. Level 3 will support long-distance travel. Somebody's willing to stop in there for a half an hour and get 100 kilometers or more, but they're not going to be willing to do that if they're only getting 40 kilometers per hour. So I think that level 3s are probably the way to go. That said, my next question is, could we put in a level 3? Is it too difficult because of the electrical hookup that's required?
So Mono Center will not support a level 3. Okay. It is a single-phase line, and it will not support the wattage. The price tag for a level 3 is staggering to a point of anywhere from 30,000 to 150,000, depending on your kilowatt output. Our early estimates on that. I don't pretend to know a lot about electric vehicle uses, but I have heard that level 3s they are quicker, and people want them. That takes the range anxiety away from people when they can charge within 24 minutes or 30 minutes for a level 3, by all means. But by all means, I understand the level 3s are hard on the batteries from repetitive use, that they will heat the battery to a point that it starts to degrade the overall capacity and consumption of it. While it's quick and easy, I believe that you will lose. I believe I'm not quoting anything. I believe it does start to hinder your long-term charging ability, similar to your iPhone loses 100% capacity at one point. So no to Mono Center on level 3. Monora Park becomes very tricky. It would put a pause on the project because the charge, or on the application to the grant, which the deadline is tomorrow, they will pull more than 50 kilowatt hours from the system. So we'd need a certification letter from Ontario Hydro that their grid in its entirety could hold it. So, and there's an option of a level 3 at Monora, but we wouldn't be able to, my understanding of the grant application is we wouldn't be able to supply the secondary ports being a level 2 to the satisfaction of the requirements of the grant. You have to put in, basically they're looking for four ports, and they're not concerned whether they're level 3, level 2, but they're looking for 4, so it'd be single pillar, double-sided, 4 parking spots. Basically, that's what they're looking for. So if you do a level 3 at the bottom end, that would trigger a Ontario Hydro review process, and it would also trigger our electrician to start to look at, we know off the top of our head that they will support level 2s, but the level 3s will take some more research for sure.
I'm not at all surprised with that. I thought it was necessary to ask it. Have you been able to find what the proposed kilowatts are for these level 2s?
So we're basically, in order to receive the funding back with respect to the grant, we have to be within the 3.3 kilowatt to 19 kilowatt range. Right now, sorry, I was
We probably
talking,
can't handle.
talking, wasn't looking up what I was supposed to be looking up for you.
We probably can't handle the 19 with 4 ports, but we could handle more than the 7.2, I think.
Yeah, we would want to stay below 13 kilowatts, because that would be under the, when aggregated together, it would keep us under the 50, which wouldn't require an overall local distribution, Ontario Hydro review of the system.
So I guess my point is that the higher the kilowatts that we can put in there, the more useful it's going to be to people.
Agreed,
Yeah.
agreed, and the grants, the grant works in a compensation, a contingency with respect to the location of these. We don't know whether we're cutting parking lots yet, or we're trying to find the opportune location, or we may even be building a self-contained pads for, or locations for these. Once we had to start to look at Monora, the successful grants, it would be nice to be able to lay down 4 new spots, and then the impact to Kim would not be seen, right? So, but we're looking, there is a contingency, and the grants are not to the penny by any means.
Elaine, then Fred, then Melinda.
I think you did answer this, Mike, because I looked at it and went, why do we need to have 4? Like, 4 seems to be more than we need. If we had 2, I think it's a good move to have availability of electric charging stations on our municipal sites where we can. But you say we have to have 4 at each of those sites as part of the requirement for that grant?
You are correct. Minimum 4 level 2 ports, minimum 1 level 3 port if co-located with level 2 ports. So that they're still looking for 4.
Right, and now, what happens if we put these in and they're not top of the line, and they're, like, I don't understand charging stations at all, but what happens when they become defunct? Like, when they're no longer the top of the line, or top of the technology, and the technology is outdated, then what do? Now we've got these charging stations we have to demolish and recycle somewhere. Like, I don't know what that looks like.
It's almost similar to a gasoline engine. When it's done, we buy a new one. And these satisfy the standards, the current standards that they're requiring today. And it's a very good comment that, yes, I would think that there'll be upgrades, they'll become smaller, they'll be faster, and I think there will be changes. And Your comments are bang on, Councillor Capes.
Yeah, so it's just a matter of, yes, we get a grant, but we still have to invest our own money, and is this the best way to invest money to reach our climate desires? Like, so, you know that better than I do. And do people pay for this, or is it free?
I would be recommending to council that these are paid.
Okay, so you have to put a credit card in to use
So
it?
one of the requirements is they can be hitched to the system, which, to the global system. I'll be very general, I won't use trade names. They can come up on a map for people to see, and which I would recommend, because it's like advertising, right? We want people to come here and use them. But one of the units has to be self-contained and I think disconnected from the web. So you can use your credit card or your debit card. Because I believe that some of the systems, your money is uploaded to the app and you pay through the app. But one of the systems has to be equal and fair, I guess, to everybody to pay with another means of, other than to belong to that community
Right.
of chargers.
So that energy cost, we pay for?
We would pay, and it would be, I don't know a lot of the information behind this right now, but my mind says that we will be setting rates that would return our cost with respect to, but I don't know if these rates are regulated, but we would charge a rate that we would be, well, we would seek council's direction whether we wanted a return for profit. We'd be looking for, quite frankly, an investment in the changeover of the systems, and we'd looking for enough money to pay for the Hydro Plus, would be my opinion. We also want to stay in the market for people to show up and use them, right?
Right, okay.
Actually,
Thank you.
Just hang on, Fred's next, and then Melinda.
I was just going to say, wasn't my question, but presumably we'd set the rates. The county's dealt with this, and they've decided on the rates for the ones that have already been installed. The first year, I think, was free.
First 2 hours, I believe, are free.
But they've set a rate. I would make the assumption that ours should be comparable to whatever they're going to charge. But my question was for Kim. Do you have any indication about whether having these chargers increases the rentability of either of our pavilions? Do people, when they are renting them now, do they ask for this?
No, Deputy Mayor Nix, that is not a question that has ever come forward for us.
Thank you very much. This is very interesting. It's in bold on page 3. You know, it's $45,000 we're asking for here to do this. And so when are you gonna get the $45,000 back? And if you're gonna get into a sharing thing that you're on an app, that it's nice to have an app and so on, but the money goes to the app developers and to everybody else, and you get a couple of pennies at the back. We're never gonna get the 45 grand back. And I don't know that we're in a position. So, but my question though is, tomorrow's the deadline for the grant. So, and you've brought it forward to us. So if you fill out the grant, you would have to say that this is the designated, or can it be waffly that we might put them here and we might put them there, and please give us some money, and then we could assess it if we get the grant? Or does it have to be really specific, and then we're locked into spending the 45 grand ourselves and putting these things in?
So the goal was twofold. Let council know we were a little behind the 8 ball on this, and I'm trying to get a little bit of permission for the next round if I can't make this tomorrow. This will be 2 grant applications. Every site has to be individual. They will be looking how we fund it, which is pretty simple. We're a corporation, municipality, so our portion of the cost would be committed to. But signing of the grant and acceptance of the grant, in my opinion, would still, staff being notified that we received the grant is one thing, but staff and council committing to proceeding through the process would be what I would seek should we receive positive notice of the grant. And as I move, sort of, you had a little more in there, but did I get answered there?
You did. I mean, I don't want it to, it comes to us and, I'm negative Nancy and say, no, we don't need it. I mean, but given the right setting and given the right tweaking, like I'm thinking, permitting, why wouldn't we have it if we, up here in Mono where no, we don't get a whole bunch of traffic through in contrast to Monora? Why couldn't we have a permitting system for just our own residents to come and use it, and we could actually make a few bucks on it, or who knows what the future is. So I wouldn't want to be locked in right now. And so, yes, you've answered the question in that filling out the grant process is one thing, actually doing it and implementing it and figuring out what's best for Mono is another discussion later.
It can be. Council should be aware that in the Charge On grant, it does speak that these are open inclusive to anybody at any time, 24/7, 365. One thing that council should be aware of as well is there will be a yearly subscription fee for being on the networks, and so there is a yearly cost, and there probably will be some maintenance with respect to these.
So Mike has just mentioned a network, and I think that all of them are on networks. Otherwise, nobody knows where they are. So they're not isolated somewhere, and it's just a Town of Mono thing. So the process is you go on your phone and you click on it. I have 3 of them here. One's called Charge Hub. The other's a very big one. It's called Charge Point, and the other one is Flow, and Flow is what we have here. So the Flow is the name of the network, and so we subscribe to that. I don't know what the money situation is. I suspect it's more than a few cents that you get back on it. And if you don't have that, then nobody knows you're there. So if I go on my network here and I hit Flow, and it comes up and it shows me a picture of where they all are. And then also, I can click on one that tells me whether it's busy or not. So I go to the one that's free, et cetera. And that's what everybody does who has an electric car. Most people in our area are different than they are down in some areas of Toronto, because most people in our area will have a home charger. And a home charger is far cheaper than going into Petro-Canada, which is the most expensive. I think they're rated at twice what Flow is at. But they would use these as an emergency when you run out and you weren't watching your equipment to tell you how low you were. Or you're on your way to Ottawa, and you don't have enough charge to get there. So if you're on your way to Ottawa, you're definitely going to go for the level 3, even though I think you're right, Mark. Mike, it is harder on the battery, although most people will set their battery for a maximum of 80% charge, which is the last 20% that's particularly hard when you're charging a battery. There are new ones up there now that are, I don't know whether they call them level 4, but the equivalent of level 4, where you can get a massive charge very quickly. And I don't know what it does to your battery. But, so the important thing to know is that you have to be on a network. We can choose whatever we want to be on a network, and that'll allow people to find us and make use of them. I think it's unfortunate that we have to do 4 at each place, because I think that 2 would be more appropriate, but that's it.
Okay, I've got a motion, and we put the idea to the test, that we receive the CAO's report, Ministry of Transportation, MTO, Electric Vehicle EV Charge On program dated January 20th, 2024, and that we direct staff to commence with funding applications for electric vehicle charging stations within the framework and financial impact contained in the report. Any further discussion? I'll move it. Okay, do I have a seconder? Ralph seconds. Anything further?
With the caveat that granting is a separate process. If we're successful, this will come back to the table for us to talk about the actual implementation and where they go and how they go in. Yes?
All agreements, clerk's giving me this, all agreements will come to council for signature to enter into the spending agreement, so.
Promise not to sign anything until you guys approve.
Yeah, no, we would bring this to council with probably a more fulsome report.
Right,
If we, with a little bit of process and maybe network, I'll finalize drill down on the numbers. The numbers are estimates now. But should we receive notice, it'll be late spring, midsummer, I think, before we even hear back from the province on this.
But this proposal is identifying,
Mike was saying.
this proposal is identifying two possible sites, or two sites that we are going to use. Is that not correct?
Yes.
Yes, I just meant where they're located within those parking
Oh, I see.
lots.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay, content that I call the question? Any opposed? Motion's carried. And it comes back, the devil is in the details, and it comes back to us. Okay. DEI resolution of advice / training.
Your worship, it may seem like a very similar resolution to something that we passed during budget time.
Yes.
There was a little confusion, not so much confusion, there was a little wording in the last resolution basically said that the committee should identify, I think it said that the committee should identify the appropriate training modules. And this resolution clarifies that the committee recommends that the CAO prepare a training regiment, for lack of better words, one on DEI, one on diversity, one on equity, one on inclusion, and a fourth on truth and reconciliation within the confines. So that was Michelle and I got very confused with the last motion, but this, I think, puts it in stone the wishes of the committee for council to direct staff, CAO, to proceed in this manner.
Fred? I'm in favor of the motion. Can I just suggest, though, before the town of Mono goes ahead and gets this training thing up and running, that you check with the county to see if there aren't some synergies here, like if they're gonna have a session some night for their staff or their council members, which they've already had, why wouldn't we just join them and benefit from the economies of scale?
So from a counselor's perspective, absolutely. I think that may be easier, but from a staff perspective, these are individual modules to our individual staff with an expectation with our existing training for staff already. We're hoping an hour, just under an hour, around an hour on each module, which we're having trouble finding because these are long training.
This is an online
These are
thing?
long training sessions, but we're working our way towards that with the Canadian Center for Diversity.
And this is an online sort of
These are online. I believe council was also provided a password to the Canadian Diversity website. Councillor Davey, I'm wondering now, but you should, I think you do. This is sort of the regiment for staff. The committee, I believe, is sort of monitoring and working to follow the county. But the county just reinstituted their meeting again, and in early December or in early January, and I'm thinking they're resetting the committee if I got a sense of their agenda, which was looking for volunteers, how to be a volunteer on a committee, very similar to what the clerk performs for our committees at the inauguration of council.
So I had a call from a member of another committee who I think asked a pretty good question, and that is, what about training for other committees, committee members in their respective areas? In other words, no, not DEI. This is training, relative to what could be recreation, it could be heritage, it could be planning.
Well, I would think that the chair should be reaching out to the staff member that sits on that committee and And they can, they should discuss it as an agenda item at their meetings, if there is a specified item, and they should provide a resolution of advice to council, especially if it's been budgeted, or whether it's been budgeted for or not,
Okay.
and what the course is. I
I'm-
would think that would be the,
I'm just looking for an answer to the question, have we set budgets for other kinds of training?
unfortunately, I can't comment on the individual committees right now. But perhaps Les could comment with respect to the budget submissions that he received from the individual committees. The DEI committee, for example, council asked me to incorporate the staff DEI training into the existing administrative training. But with respect to the other committees, Heritage and so forth, I'm not sure.
Okay, so I have a motion that we accept the resolution advice from the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee and direct the CAO to proceed with ensuring that that council, committees of council, and staff avail themselves of appropriate DEI and Truth and Reconciliation training. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Capes, seconded by Councillor Magtalo. Any further discussion? Any opposed to the motion? And that motion is carried. Now we come to the big event, tax rate bylaw. And that's a fairly straightforward thing that flows from the budget every year. And I'll just read the motion that we have, that we introduce and give the necessary readings to a bylaw to adopt the estimates of all sums required during the year and to strike the rates of taxation for the year 2024, that it be signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed and engrossed in the bylaw book. Les, do you have anything to add to the written report?
I have nothing to add other than to just reaffirm that it's at 6% tax rate increase as discussed during the budget process.
Thank you. Any questions, comments before we call the vote? Needed a mover and a seconder. Councillor Davey is the mover, Deputy Mayor Nix is the seconder. Thank you for letting me know.
Can I just ask a question? And I was trying to find it. Did we not get an email from you, Les, to comment that there was something that the 6 was going to be tricky and it might need to be 6.5 after we had the last council meeting?
After I went to calculate the tax rate, it was coming in a little higher than 6 was coming. So based on past council's direction, I took money out of reserves and amended it, and I forwarded an updated copy to you. So it is at 6%.
All right,
It's back
thank you.
down to 6. Great. Any opposed to the motion? Councillor Capes is opposed. Motion is carried.
Did you want it to be 10?
Okay, we are on to the Town of Mono Health and Safety Policy Statement.
So this is an annual submission to council, and you're reconfirming our commitment to health and safety with respect to the workers, the employees of the corporation, and members of the public within our facilities.
Okay, Councillor Capes?
Thank you for giving us this and letting us know this. I just have a question. Do all staff sign documentation to say that they have read and understood all of the applicable safety and health training that they participate in?
So all staff have a onboarding, all new staff have an onboarding process with anywhere from normally around 10 items that we go through. Existing staff receive monthly requirements for similar to know before cyber training, and the signature that's required on commitment that council and staff are putting on, or council is putting on this memo, is on all the joint health and safety boards around the town. I think we have 6 or 7 of them, and staff are well aware of the locations of these, and they're well aware of the green books and the ministry and the rights and responsibilities of staff. So it's all part of their ongoing yearly and annual training.
Okay, thank you.
Just apropos of that, a gentle reminder to everyone on council to complete their computer training so that we are 100%
did.
current on
Did you
that.
check it out? I did it.
I won't name names. I was one who was on strike for a while, but,
I'm one. I can't get into it.
okay. Well, maybe we can get some assistance on that.
It's appreciated, so the 45 to an hour annual for council is, it's good stuff, I think. It really helps
Well,
your
they've
home.
they've
Really helps your
simplified
home
it.
life, and they should be more informational, I think, as opposed to, they should be more informational.
Well,
really.
they've improved, and so I commend them to you because they have improved, and I was one of the worst offenders for a period of time, but I'm caught up now.
Yeah, so just for information, staff does about a 7 to 10 minute per month, plus plus what council sees. So staff is on the newest and greatest of the cyber issues that come across our plates, and those are monthly requirements, so.
I can't even get on the internet over the last couple of days, so there's no problem.
Kind of our way of getting you into the building more often, I think.
Okay. So I haven't read the motion yet. The council adopts the 2024 Health and Safety Policy Statement. A mover for that, Councillor Davies, seconded by Deputy Mayor Nix. Any opposed? That motion is carried. On to Schedule A. And a few of us have submitted our wish list to the clerk.
I did by telephone.
Great, terrific, okay. And so let's maybe be guided by what Fred has in his possession as items on the list.
So the first item on the list for discussion was number 2, development charges background study.
Can I just make a comment on that? I actually phoned Fred about that, and, because that is a complicated, difficult report, and my head was swimming by the time I got through it. Fred told me that we will be having Watson and Associates do a presentation, so immediately my thought was, we don't have to ask Les all those difficult questions today. Maybe we just wait until Watson's going to be here.
When is that?
I don't know. Fred, can you clarify, can you confirm what you told me?
When the treasurer lets me know. So I, in all honesty, I'm afraid I don't know the timeline and schedule, so I can't give you a date at this moment when the
Let me ask my fellow
presentation will
councilors,
be.
would it make sense then? Because I think several of us put down item 2 to talk about today. We might be asking a lot of questions needlessly if we haven't heard from Watson and Associates.
So really staff put this on here, Les probably cursing me when I put it on, but it was an introductory meeting to staff with a July 31st deadline, I believe, Les, that we have to have our new DC bylaw in place and signed by council. This was a kickoff slideshow, and then more or less notification to council that you're going to be hearing from us over the months coming. And we heard you loud and clear that you may want Watson in the building to answer, along with our planner and our treasurer, to answer some of these Development Charges Act information, right? So it's really just notifying to council that we will be commencing with the DC studies this year, and any concerns, questions that you may have, by all means, submit them to us, and we'll get them vetted by the economist.
Yes, go ahead.
So, generally speaking, I'd like an English translation of what that is. And I want to know the impact, like what is the bottom line impact to us? Like, reading all that, I could have cut and pasted out of a whole bunch of documents and stuck it there, and it's like, it doesn't make any sense to me. And so I would appreciate understanding what's the bottom line. And so I would like Watson to come and talk to us about that. I don't need to have a list of all of the regulatory changes. I appreciate that, and I appreciate they drive the changes we make. But I want to understand, where the rubber hits the road, what does it mean for Mono? So that's what I would love to understand.
Melinda?
Can I,
Les first and then Melinda.
I guess at this point, like Mike said, this was our kickoff meeting. There's no bottom line here yet. It's for sure, it's geared at staff. So we got all those legislation. Half the meeting was a history lesson. Kind of, here's all the new legislation. A lot of this legislation is aimed at Southern Ontario, not us. The big impact of the new legislation is when we do finally have a new development charge, we will be into the phase-in. If you recall, the new legislation is, we'll set a rate, and then the first charge would be 80% of that rate, and it increases by 5% till the 5th year becomes 100%. We don't have a number. Basically what we were doing is our last development charge study had a whole list of capital projects that were triggered by growth. So part of the review is, are any of these projects done? We'll check off a few of them. Yes, we completed this, and that. Are there any outstanding? Yes, we do have some outstanding, but some of these projects were still beyond the scope of our last bylaw. So we'll add that on the list. And then we'll do a review by each department. How many new growth-related projects do we have to do? So that will be derived. So this is very preliminary. And then the growth will be funded by, the cost will be funded by potential growth. Well, at the moment, on the books, there's nothing on the books for growth. Yes, we have a couple of hearings at the OLT, but officially, nothing is different than the last study. The only thing we're planning for growth right now is our annual 10 residential homes per year based on our history of severances. Sure, there'll be some years we might have 12 or 13, other years would be less than 10. But on average, our history is 10 services a year. So right now, that growth will fund any future growth costs. But if anything changes before July, then we're gonna have to, we'll have that calculation in the background to quickly include that in the calculation. Now, the one change that we were told by Watson in the past, when we determine our level of service that new growth has to meet, it was based on a 10-year history. The new legislation now is 15 years. So it kind of dilutes our level of service. So whatever it cost us over 10, now is going to be costed over 15 years. So the province is definitely has changing the legislation. It's a pro-development development charge now. But basically, we're very preliminary. We don't know what our new costing is yet to fund growth, and so we don't have a charge yet. So right now, our current bylaw is good to the end of July, and obviously, we have to have something in place by then. Now, I did bring, I'm sorry to keep going on, I did bring up the mayor's suggestion of, instead of doing per household a flat rate charge, do a per square footage or whatever based on size, because different houses are bigger than others. And the reps at Watson said they have no data that growth costs are driven by square footage. Says they have no municipality that charges residential development charge by square footage. Now, they did say they can do it by bedrooms, by number of bedrooms. I guess some homes have more than the average. I think an average home has 3 bedrooms, but there's some homes that only have 2 bedrooms. But I'm assuming the monster homes must have more than that. So we can do it by bedrooms.
But why do they do it for industrial commercial as a factor of area?
I guess for the commercial, they have more data to support it. That
Well,
it does drive growth.
my suggestion is that they get the data, because I think empirically we can agree that a 20,000 square foot home with multiple cars, multiple people, potentially, puts more stress on our services than a tiny home. Somebody's got to have it, and my point is, I think we owe it to our ratepayers to explore that. It's absurd that a tiny home would get the same development charge as the 20,000 square foot monster home.
Yeah, so the message we got back was the data's not there.
Fire services, if a fire takes off in a big house, it's harder to put out.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, for
know.
sure.
And, so I think they should explore it. In fact, I was gonna move a motion to that effect, and would like to move a motion to that effect.
For 10 houses? It's a small amount.
Well, it's a small amount, but the 10 houses might be quite large. And they would, if you could support it, would generate more development charges than maybe what we're collecting currently on the flat rate. So I think it's, you know, like, suggest to them that they get the lead out, because this isn't the first time they're gonna face this kind of question, I think. Especially with the movement towards smaller homes. And in our case, some very large homes. Les, I had another question. I had two other questions. One was a statement within their report that development charge studies are no longer eligible for developer funding. I think they backed that off. I think they walked that back.
At the moment, the legislation, that administrative studies are not covered, but Watson did mention that they got a lot of pushback, and they're looking at backing that off. So that may change before our bylaw is passed.
I have, there's something somewhere that
You are
suggests to me
correct,
that
Mr. Mayor.
they've backed it off, or they said they would back it off. Final question from me, anyway. Are there services that we're not collecting for that we should be collecting for? And the big one that I saw on their list was policing. We're not collecting for policing, but it looks like we may be eligible to collect for policing.
The policing, normally municipalities can collect for police, but we do not have our own police department because we are on contract, so we don't actually have our own physical assets. So the way they're looking at is it's an operating cost.
Oh, surely to goodness, I mean, that disqualifies 3/4 of Ontario. You know, the logic of that doesn't make sense. I mean, a component of our annual policing bill is capital related, you know, cruisers and, you know, the various policing toys.
I'll have them look at it. I mean,
Yeah, I think,
sure.
you know, that's the big one. And we don't
Especially
have
now
our
most
own
of Dufferin
library,
is basically on OPP, so.
We don't have our own library, but do we not collect for library costs?
We're library board members in Shelburne. So we were collecting for library.
Only for Shelburne?
Correct.
Again, you know, what we pay for those services arguably is a split between operating and capital. Sure it is. Yeah. Any other questions of, you know, and I agree they should come and talk to us, but I think it's fair now that we give you a heads up as to what our expectations are.
Well,
Sorry, I was just wondering, I mean, maybe, do we really need them to come and talk to us? I mean, maybe we just need you to have more time to digest what's already happened and our staff be the ones who are informing us of what we have. And the other thought, I mean, the last amendment was in December, which is, you know, a hot second ago. There may be lots more amendments and changes because what they're talking about is so controversial and getting this pushback from everybody. What we have stands until June. We don't have anything that's, it's not pressing. We don't have anything that's on unless of course our OLT, all of a sudden something happens, right?
That is correct, Counselor. Now, nothing prevents us, say nothing comes to the forefront that changes our current calculation of development charges, and we pass our bylaw so that we don't have no bylaw. But nothing stops us, if we have more updated information by the end of the year, to update our bylaw again. We don't have to, but we can.
Right, and then Ralph?
okay, I can't find the correct slide, but someplace in this slide deck, there was a comment about all this changes of legislation, and there was either an exemption or deferral or something for some types of buildings. One of them was affordable residential, and affordable is defined, you know, how it's defined. But then it said attainable, And why, I can't find the slide, Les. Where my ears picked up on that is we had a developer appear before us about a particular application, and they wouldn't use the word affordable, because that's been defined. They used the word that these houses would be attainable, and that's what twigged. Does that mean that one development that is before us right now that's gonna build attainable houses, do they get some price discount on development charges because of, I wish I could find the slide, Les.
See, there's a calculation to determine if that development meets that definition. And it's based on income criteria for the area and general market prices for homes. So, it's a new area. I mean, it'd be something I'll jot down for the consultants to look at.
I believe the definition, I don't know if it's been finalized, but for attainable provincially, it means, as it's traditionally been considered, 30% of gross family income.
Okay.
So, okay, and then they get,
You can use that.
oh, yeah. So if it's 30% of.
Yeah, I mean, the
household
rule has
income,
always been traditionally that you shouldn't be spending more than 30% of your gross family income on household, correct.
and they get some break on development charges.
That's my understanding on Bill 23, yeah.
Okay, I've got to do some thinking on that.
So we're going to have, developers try to fly under the radar here to avoid playing any DCs.
Yeah.
And our ratepayers are expected to pick up the tab. That's really very encouraging.
Question. Back to our tax rate that we had and the mill rate at 0.4 and so on. So not for new houses or whatever, but ultimately, if you build a house and the development charges are discounted or whatever, and so it's low, then presumably your actual value of the home, you'll pay going forward for these services that you now have increased the need for, right? So just in time, because you have to pay taxes all the time, right? So somebody has said to me, and I wanted to clarify that, Mono has a low tax rate, mill rate, but we also have a very high assessment, the highest assessment in Dufferin. And I thought, well, yeah, but we're all assessed at 2016, so everybody's is low at the minute. But it's not true, right?
If you sold, your house gets reevaluated, like,
Right.
it changes, so it's not just everybody's at 20.
Not everybody, but if you haven't sold since before 2006, if you haven't sold since, then that's your assessment value, and it's going to change, right? So for the developer who comes in for the attainable, so he's trying to keep his price down, he doesn't have to pay, but the people going forward will then still also be paying
And
low.
everyone else.
Right.
Yeah, it's, and everyone else, that's the key
Yeah.
part. That we'll be putting the burden of growth-related costs onto the general taxpayer as opposed to the person moving into the community.
Right, because even if we want to keep it low, it has to be spread, it is spread out right, okay.
So, Les, do you have a sense of where council's coming from? Okay.
And then after the meeting, if you have any
go ahead.
thoughts after, fire off an email to me, and I'll pass the comments on to our Watsons.
Ralph?
So what I'm going to say here is an ask, but it's already been mentioned by others, but I think it's very important. And Elaine alluded to it very strongly. What we need, Les, is for you to dumb down these regulations so we can understand what they are. And secondly, we need to understand their application, what's the formula, et cetera. So, and in terms of Watson doing it, that's fine, but I'd like to hear it from you, because you to compliment you, you explain things very well. And that's my 2 cents worth.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing special about Watson coming except for the 25-page PowerPoint. And And I don't think it would be much different than what we've already seen here. So I second everybody's suggestion that you give us a Coles Notes version.
When you're ready.
Yeah. Okay, so that's the first item. Fred, next item on your list?
The next item was number 7, the minutes from the Shelburne Public Library Board of December 19th of last year.
Okay. Who requested that? Elaine?
Well, so we have two items on here from the Shelburne Public Library. And my suggestion was that we respectfully invite our representatives so that they can come and talk to us, because I think that's respectful, and we should appreciate the work and the time that one of our citizens puts in at the Shelburne Library. I did not expect that she would be asked to polish her boots and get here today, but she's here, and I very much appreciate that. So I wonder if we could have just a quick.
Very quick. Because we can always reconvene at a later
Right.
date.
Yes.
Fred?
Your Worship, I just want to ask the question, would this be better scheduled as in a delegation?
I would think so, but I mean, Sharon
Just
is
then
here.
the public would be aware of this
It-
conversation, that's all.
Absolutely. It wasn't my intention that she would receive an email yesterday asking her to come. It was just me saying I would like to invite our representative to speak. So, she's here.
Sharon, let's make this very brief, and then if necessary, we can schedule you as a delegation.
Sharon Martin, 593-227 Blind Line. Good evening. Morning. Huh? Morning. You haven't been sitting out there. So I have discussed a delegation with Fred Simpson and with Rose Doughton, and I don't think many of you are familiar with her at all, and I would really like her to be be part of the delegation. What she has suggested is the delegations are going to go to every municipality involved in the Shelburne Library. So now what she's looking at is April or May because of weather. She doesn't drive when the weather isn't good, and to prepare, so the preparation will be done for every municipality, and questions can be asked. But if there are any questions, I think that the minutes pretty well convey the kind of work that's being done there, and all the things that are being offered. One of the neat things is the coffee conversation and books, where they have an author, usually a local author, and it's coffee conversation, and it's at the Jelly Cafe. So that's kind of a neat one, I think. But if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Fred? Could you ask her, when she does the delegation, a difficult question? What are her own views on providing library services to residents in Dufferin in terms of the governance model? Is it best to have library boards with various municipalities contributing to the funding of that library? Or is it best to have a library owned by a municipality that then charges neighboring residents a fee for getting a library card? It's a difficult one, partly because she represents one side of the model, and we have people that represent the other side of the model, but I'm honestly conflicted. I don't know which is the best way to provide library services.
There have been discussions about that, and Rose is quite capable of answering that question, and because she has been with other libraries and librarians to discuss that kind of a model. Every library likes to keep their own, they like to be running their own system and what they're doing and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think it's It's a fair question, and Rose, and actually, I think someone else is coming too, would like to be part of that delegation.
So I have a tougher question.
Sure.
That is, does Shelburne have any plans to expand its library, given the population explosion up there? What's their planning?
None,
and
but part
when-
of their, they will have, there is an idea to have kiosk set up different places so that there are books there, and right now they take, one of the librarians takes books to Deferred Oaks, and so they have a thing going on there. But this is a big discussion to set up kiosks and what they look like and where they'd put them and all that. That's coming up in the next couple of months, I'd say.
So Fred, maybe work with Sharon and Rose to schedule a delegation? Any other questions while we
No.
have you here? Thank you for, thank you for your patience sitting through. Yeah,
Yeah, well, it was a command performance,
great,
right?
great to see you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item?
Okay, next is item number 11, the Social and Economic Prosperity Review. And it was requested that a resolution be prepared that is basically a repeat of the one that is on the agenda.
Okay. And whose item was that? Okay.
That was one. Nobody else?
Nope, doesn't appear.
Do I need to write that motion for you?
No, I have that motion prepared, so it is identical to the county's motion with a minor change at the end as to who would be informed of the motion. Because it throws in AMO, taking that from their near identical resolution number 12 on the agenda.
Is that a short one, easy to read?
No, but I'm willing to read a long one, Your Worship.
Well, I'm in the hands of council on that.
Well, we can all read it.
Yeah. So do we have a mover? Councillor Capes, seconded by Councillor Davy. Any further discussion? So it's a motion identical to the county's save and except for some adjustments at the end.
That is correct. I've just added that we would be informing AMO.
Okay, very good then. Any opposed? Motion's carried. Next item on the schedule.
One sec, I've lost my list. Is it? Somehow I've lost my list. Ah, there it is. It says, number 15, the OPP launch of the CAMSAFE program.
I did just want to say that I appreciate that, and I think it's a good use of involving people in keeping our area safe. So that's all I wanted to say.
Okay, next was item 16, the Women of Ontario say no, basic human rights legislation. There's a comma between the word no and legislation. It's not that they say no to
No legislation.
legislation. The
Exactly.
organization is the Women of Ontario say no.
Thank you for your humor. I just wanted to repeat that council has supported this initiative so that people do know that.
Okay, next was item 17, a response from the Minister of Transportation with respect to the town's correspondence.
It took the Minister of Transportation 2 months to generate this very anemic letter. And I mean anemic to the point of requiring Geritol. Just dreadful. Now, the good news is that I was able to get a meeting with him. It's now going to be early February at some point. I haven't heard back as to a suggested date and time, but you're all welcome to go to Toronto with me, but we did get their attention with our road safety emergency motion, which, by the way, is in front of Caledon Council tonight, and is being supported by a delegation of citizens of Caledon who really want Caledon to join in on that. So that will be interesting watching tonight, sometime shortly after 7 o'clock.
The next item was number 18, the Association of Ontario Road Supervisors request with respect to equipment operation courses.
And I just flagged this because I wanted to understand that, how we actually train our operators, if this is something that is coming up. So it's just a question for me to know how our operators are trained.
Thanks, Councillor Capes. Years ago, our operations staff, the Director of Public Works, had kind of arranged a minimum requirement for all our operations staff. Some of which is through AORs, some of it is with OGRA, Good Roads Association. So there are milestones that they have to hit as minimum requirements, but there's ongoing training, as Mike had alluded to earlier, monthly training and tailgate talks that the operations manager and foreman kind of have instituted over the years. So there are minimum requirements, and I think this is a great initiative with AORs, because it's not spoke about. I know AORs the last few years has been reaching out to high schools to get students to kind of look at this as an opportunity to maybe go into this field. It's a great field. There's not just operators, there's water and wastewater and engineering and whatnot. So it's a great initiative. Yeah, I think it's a great idea, but
Next was item 25, the resolution from Tweed with respect to license plate renewal fees. And on this one, there was a request for a resolution to support, to endorse and support Tweed's resolution.
That's mine, and the municipality of Tweed is bringing to people's attention a really silly decision of the province to do away with the so-called val tags that go on to licenses, and in that one action, millions of dollars in POA monies were literally swept off the table, because in a great many instances, somebody who was stopped for speeding, as an example, would also get an $85 fine for a plate that was expired. And all of a sudden, that one decision has cost municipalities a ton of money. And people are uncertain as to how they keep their licenses up to date. Now we're being told we have to go to Staples to do that, I guess. But I'd like to see us support that motion. Okay, so I'll move, and Elaine will second.
So, Your Worship, the resolution I've proposed for council is that Council of the Town of Mono supports and endorses the resolution by the municipality of Tweed calling on the province to reinstate the license plate renewal system.
Thank you. And one other thing that the old system allowed for as well was to spot disqualified drivers, people whose licenses had been taken away. And there was an item on the CBC this morning, I think it was, where there's an increasing market for fake license plates to get around the toll roads and to confuse the police. So they have a real problem on their hands. Any further, Ralph?
I had thought that in Elaine's extensive list of Schedule A, that she'd included one which is which is number 3 in it. I'd like to just briefly comment on it because it involves a member of our staff.
Can we do our motion first?
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought we had
That's
finished
okay.
that. Yeah.
So, any opposed to supporting the municipality of Tweed?
Your Worship, can you just repeat the mover and seconder for me?
Counselor Capes is the mover, and, oh, no, I'm the mover, Counselor Capes is the seconder. Any opposed? Seeing none, it's carried. Ralph?
Yes, I'd just like to comment on the DEI survey. I'd like to comment on the DEI survey. There's a lot of work put into this by a couple of members of the committee, and a tremendous amount of work by Andrew Dahmer, and I'd like to recognize him. He put this together in a survey form, and then he did the analysis. And Andrew brings to this table quite a skill in analysis, and pointed out quite rightly that we didn't have enough. We probably needed 5 times as many people for it to be statistically significant. It was, to me, of interest what the results were, particularly the comments of people. And I think that's where the learning thing is for the committee here. But to Andrew, a very strong thank you and appreciation.
Thank you. Fred?
Yeah, I thought it was a great report, too.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate the response was as low as it was. But what I would ask the DEI committee or anyone on the council, look, if this subject was a burning issue in Mono, wouldn't have our response rate been much higher? The fact that most people, I mean, we've done surveys before and had fairly large number of people respond. The fact that so few people responded to this, does it possibly mean that for most people in Mono, this, I've got to be careful how I say this, this is not an enormous issue. Of course, for the individuals who are experiencing something like discrimination, it is very important, and I don't mean to trivialize it. But the fact that the response rate was so low, does that say something about how important this issue is for most Mono residents?
So thank you for those nice words about our support from staff, because it's very much appreciated. So, well, this isn't statistically relevant. There are good comments, and it could be a good baseline for if we do this in 5 years, again, and use the same survey and see what the response is and see if there's a trend, see if there's anything going on. So it is valuable. The other thing is that I think we should all be aware of Dufferin County's Community Safety and Well-Being Survey. Deadline is tomorrow. I was going to bring a poster down, but I forgot to bring it with me. But we're encouraging all citizens to complete that survey, because the more information we can gather, the better it is that we can formulate actions to make sure that people do feel safe in our community. So when that survey information is available, we're not going to get it at the Mono level, but we'll get it at the Dufferin County level, and that might be good information for us to take back to our DEI committee as well. So there's lots of other opportunity to find out how people feel. So
Is the survey on the county website?
yes, it is. And actually, there's a flyer, a poster, and some takeaways upstairs at our counter that we put in there a little while ago. I think they're still there, and there might be some down at the front entrance. And if you need one, I can give you the little card so you know where to find it.
Ralph?
So, Fred, it's a really good question, and it's one that I've tussled with, because we have had good responses to other surveys. Remember the fireworks survey? I think it was maybe something 5 or 6 times as many people have replied. Yeah. And I don't know what the answer is because we certainly pushed it to get it out there. Except there's one thing, and that is that if I've been discriminated against and I feel that I'm a minority, my modus operandi is often to fly below the radar and not get involved. And maybe that's part of it.
And I'm glad to see that you're one of the last few people who took Latin in high school.
That's all I can remember.
And there's one more Fred has for us.
Yes, the last item is the last item, number 26, the resolution from Prince Edward County with respect to the lifespan of fire apparatus.
Yes.
Yes, so thank you. This has been talked about at our fire board, and it is a concern because they keep that equipment going as better than a lot of equipment. They really take care of it, and they do extend the life of those vehicles, just much like we do at the town. But I don't think we're held to this standard about insurance won't cover it anymore if it's past 10 years old or past their date. But yet, they hold the fire apparatus to that standard. And, you know, we're always talking about how we can make sure we're squeezing every penny out of our budget. And our fire department in Rosemont, they make sure that they get equipment that's still running, that they get from other places, because we can't afford the big, brand-new shiny things, because they're too expensive. So, and it's not just the trucks, it's other equipment too, like the oxygen tank filler and things like that, that we get from other fire departments that, you know, because they grow out of them or whatever. So I would like us to support this motion, and that's why I asked for that.
So the proposed motion would be that Council for the Town of Mono supports and endorses the resolution by Prince Edward County regarding the lifespan of fire apparatus, specifically pertaining to the requirement of fire trucks pertaining to the replacement of fire apparatus due to insurance requirements.
Fred, you had a question?
Well, I read that. I was actually I've been on a fire board for 14 years, and I was not aware of this. And going on memory, I think we've had equipment at the Shelburne Fire Board that, you know, we've extended the life past its estimated useful life by, you know, doing some, maybe we're wrong, but this was all news to me. I just.
It was discussed in our fire.
I think that just as everything is changing with respect to insurance for your house and your car and everything, I think things are changing. Insurance companies are getting stiffer and harder. I know that Rosemont has actually talked about the insurance over, but Shelburne has recently just bought a used vehicle and is proud of, you know, this one's 20 years old and so on, right? So, but I think that this is got to be a new thing for the insurance companies, right?
I think it's very worthy of support. Do I have a mover? Councillor Capes, Councillor Davy is seconding this motion. Any further discussion? Motion is carried in the absence of any opposed. Anything else on Schedule A? Guess we better have a motion to accept Schedule A. So I have a motion that we accept Schedule A to this agenda. Moved by Councillor Magdalow, seconded by Deputy Mayor Nix. Any opposed? A little late to be opposed. It's carried. Okay, reports of members of council and staff. Who wants to go first? Councillor Davy?
I'll go first. Thank you very much, Mayor. So for anybody who's listening and all who are here, our Winterfest is coming up on Sunday, and it's going to be nice and cold, and there's still some snow, so come. We've got all sorts of activities going on. It'll be super fun. And we've also got then the following week, or maybe February 9th, the Friday. Yeah, the following week is our Valentine's euchre. So we want everybody to come out to that, including our deputy mayor, who's got a position to hold. And I wanted to report that I went down to Roma, and it was very interesting. I think that there are a ginormous number of problems that there's a whole bunch of people who are working on trying to make better. And that was my takeaway from it. Very disappointed. I was excited to be included in a couple of delegations that the mayor had set up, and then disappointed to hear that the one person that we had seen, of course, resigned 3 days later. It's kind of like you shouldn't have been there. Were you campaigning or what? Is all I have to say. It was disappointing. But I would hope that his, yes, I have his Braille card as well. I would hope that he's passed it on, and the group of young men who were flanking him in that small room would take our ideas to heart, that there is far too much red tape, and we need to make our roads and so on safer and collect on our POAs. That was kind of the bottom line of what we were asking for. That's my report for now.
Ralph, anything?
Nothing.
Nothing.
No, the Heritage Committee continues to meet to put forward delegations, so, or designations, you'll hear from us. And we have a fire board meeting coming up this Friday, but other than that, that's it.
Just to elaborate on the Roma experience, I have Parm Gill's business card here, so it's become a bit of a collector's item. And it's actually in Braille as well as print, so we're going to keep that. We also met with the Attorney General to talk about some of the issues that were raised with the Attorney General at AMO. I didn't have as good a feeling about that meeting. He seemed to deflect a lot of the issues to the Ministry of Transportation and saying, well, get back to me when you've had your meeting with the Minister of Transportation. So I think we're in a ping pong match here between the ministry who really should care about keeping the administration of justice on track versus the ministry that notionally is in charge of the fines and its own regulations. Our message for Minister Gill was that as much as they ballyhoo all of the red tape they've cut for business, they should start looking at municipalities, the red tape that affects municipalities. And you know, that is as important as the business side. It's costly to our ratepayers, it's costly to you know, and it's inefficient. A lot of their red tape is inefficient. I mean, they have regulations that are pages and pages and pages that could be shrunk down very, very readily. So it was an interesting meeting, typical meeting, frankly. No surprises apart from Minister Gill's resignation 2 days later. Okay. Staff, who wants to go first? Les? You're okay? Matt?
Thanks, Council. Roads are we're being challenged with roads right now. As you know, we went from a pretty cold snap to a mild snap. You may receive calls. We are aware of it. We're working on it. We can't do much as far as deep grading this time of year. It's just kind of patching as we kind of go, and we'll keep them safe that way. Working on submissions to the ministry for the CLI ECA stuff that was brought to council during the budget stuff. We're working along with that and the mandates that the province has given us. Public Works has multiple tenders out for all the maintenance items that Public Works is responsible for. Closes on February 9th, the day after Sylvia's last day. So we'll be working through that, and you'll be expecting the reports to council on the 27th of February for recommendations to accept those. And we have a grader down right now, which doesn't help with the maintenance of the roads, but we're expecting it to be back up and running in the next couple weeks. So.
Weeks?
Yeah, the parts are about a week and change out, and then by the time we have to, the good thing is we don't have to send it out to get fixed. We could do it in-house, so that'll save a bit of time. But right now the part's on back order, and it's an expensive part, and it'll take some time to pull out and put the new one in. So.
Any questions? Go ahead.
Thank you very much for that. That should be on social media when you guys are repairing our grader, and something that we could then be able to put out to our residents, that, you know, we're doing the best that we can with everything. That would be very cool to see you guys fixing a big grader in-house.
Matt, I had a call, not unexpectedly, I guess, about the 30th Side Road, west of Highway 10, particularly bad, according to the person who called me, and I said I would raise it today, and I did suggest to them that this was a very challenging time of year, and the weather is not our friend in terms of things like potholes. But once again, unfortunately, the 30th Side Road is, it's not the only one, but it's in the top 5 for sure. This person said they slowed down to about 10 kilometers per hour, and they were still rocking and rolling in their car.
Thanks, Mayor Croman. We're definitely aware of it, and staff have kind of, they're working to address it today, in fact, so,
Okay.
in addition to the other locations, so.
Okay, thank you.
For clarification, is that because it got so warm, then there got the potholes or something in it? When you say rocking and rolling, as opposed to my driveway
The
this
vehicle
morning, which was
rocking and
ice?
rolling.
Right, but I was slipping today, and what is it, did the road get degraded in the short period of time that that it was really warm?
Thanks, Councillor Davy. I would say that it has a combination of, between the weather changing and, you know, trying to strip the snowpack off the road. A lot of the roads, you know, that are having this problem are a result of needing maintenance gravel this year. So shedding that water off the road, you know, they typically get crowned up with new maintenance gravel every 3 to 5 years. The ones I would say that are probably experiencing the issues right now, as far as they don't have as much of a crown on them, so the water isn't shedding off the road quite as much. The operators do try to bring the material to the center of the road and get it crowned up every fall. But as the roads kind of push out and we lose the gravel every year just naturally because of traffic and operations. So I think there's a combination of things that are coming into play there, but, yeah.
Dave?
Just quickly, I do have some reports coming to, I'm not gonna say date yet, but soon for council sessions upcoming related to backyard chickens, so a bit of a background report, and also the secondary residents in rural areas as well. So just an FYI, heads up on that. And that's about it for me. Thanks.
Thank you. Kim?
Not much more than what Councillor Davy has reported on. For those of you that are able to attend Winterfest, I'll be contacting you to just make sure you're aware of your time at the hot apple cider booth. So as always, I really appreciate your attendance at these public events. It really shows your support, and very, very encouraged by how much support we get from our council. So really want to say thank you for that in advance. And just the euchre is at Menorah on February the 9th, as opposed to Mono Center. We had to make that change because of another booking that we had. So we're at Menorah. At this point, we have 42 people registered, which I'm thrilled about, and we can take up to 60. So any more registrations would be great. And yeah, I think that's about it for recreation.
Thank you. Fred?
I have nothing, Your Worship.
Your Worship, just more for the public, as council's aware, the town attended the Aragon OLT hearing last week, and both sides submitted their cases and argued against each other, and we wait for the response from the OLT with respect to that application.
Thank you.
Just to go backwards, I wonder if we could have an understanding of where we are with our sign bylaw. Is the new one posted? The bylaw officers addressing that? We've had some people commenting on some larger signs that are up in a number of locations. I just wondered where we were with that.
So we are actively pursuing signs. We've created some new templated letters to send out. Those are either out or in the process of being delivered. We have 6 open cases and 5 that have been resolved and closed. So 5 signs have been removed, 6 more that we're pursuing actively.
Kim?
I'm sorry, Mayor Creelman, there was just one thing I forgot to mention, and that's to let you know that our snowshoe lending library is up and running. We have 47 pairs of snowshoes that are available for Mono residents to borrow, and they just have to go on our website and put in their information, and they can come pick them up on Thursday evenings and return them on Mondays. So think snow, please.
Excellent. Snow is very difficult to walk in unless you have the assistance of snowshoes or really good boots. Absolutely. Okay, notices of motion. Any notices of motion today? I will be bringing forward a motion to address the issue of revisiting some of our parking restrictions and maybe reducing some of the areas that we currently have signed for no parking, and while at the same time protecting our road shoulders and areas proximate to where people have driveways and residences and so forth. I think it will lighten up the duties of our bylaw enforcement officers, and I'll have that motion at a future council meeting.
Thank you, Mayor. I forgot one little item with respect to 236 First Street. It's coming along gangbusters if anybody's driving down there on your way to the metro on Highway 10 there. It's, the siding's up and everything, and so the renter, there'll be an open house, or there'll be a ribbon cutting probably in April, and so look for an invitation to that. And then people will be moving in shortly thereafter. So which, you know, tomorrow's February or whatever, so it's, you know, April will be very soon. So that's a project that is, that's been a terrific thing for the community.
Fred?
Yeah, and I didn't report one thing that John and I attended, and maybe of interest to the public or fellow councillors, but we had a special meeting of county council on the 25th, the evening. And I probably John is going to disagree with me here. I was a bit disappointed in it because my expectation had been that the meeting was about talking about services that municipal governments provide to their residents and which level of government in Dufferin provides that, the county or the local. Is there overlap, or are there places where we need to change who's providing those services? And by and large, that discussion did not occur because 98% of the conversation was something to this effect. Well, we really should talk about single-tier government in Dufferin County, which, by the way, I'm not in favor of, but we should talk about it. So let's instruct our warden to sit down with staff and develop a meeting with a facilitator where we can all talk about it. Why that disappointed me is that my sense going around the table, with one possible exception, is nobody at that table is in favor of single-tier government, with one possible exception. But yet, we're going to talk about it. And I really don't think that was the intent of that meeting, given the person who moved the motion and what the motion said. I thought it should be, what services do we provide? Is there overlap? Should we change who gives those services? That's my take on it. John probably has a different take.
Not dissimilar. I was particularly adamant that that we had to, one way or the other, address the issue of single tier because its supporters may be few, you know, in terms of being out in the open about it, but there's a lot of sort of elephant in the room with that issue, and I see a you know, an up or down vote very quickly to dismiss the idea, and then move on to what Fred aptly described in terms of who does what.
Yeah, I'll publicly say that I was disappointed when I watched that meeting. I thought it started incorrectly with a question about what's the problem. I think the question should have been, and I agree with you in terms of what the understanding and why that meeting was called, the question should have been, how can we gain, or can we gain efficiencies and more effective services to all of the ratepayers in Dufferin County? And what would that look like? What would that take? Rather than focusing on something that is a governance model, look at why you're there in the first place, to talk about how we improve services and what that looks like, and talk about what the governance model for that is afterwards. So I was disappointed. And I also did suggest to parties at this table that conversation shouldn't take place unless all of the CAOs in this county are at that same meeting. So it should be a meeting of all council, county council, and all CAOs. No other staff, just CAOs, because I think you have a vested interest in understanding about what they're talking about and what they're thinking about when they talk about amalgamation and single-tier government, which is the wrong conversation to have anyway. So that was my feedback.
I absolutely agree. I just think we need to get it off the table, and I don't care how we get it off the table, so that we can move on to something more substantive. Mike, sorry?
Yeah, so it did spawn a few emails amongst the CAOs, and it is going to be, I'm not sure whether I told council last meeting, the CAOs have commenced with their monthly meetings once again. It was always the Dufferin municipal officers, which was clerks and treasurers, but the CAOs have commenced with that, and it will hit that meeting. There was the confusion when I watched the video was definitely about what staff would be at the table, and did that include the lower tiers, or whether the framework is going to be set up by county staff, and that'll be a question that we'll be discussing amongst the CAOs.
Thank you for raising that, because I was trying to forget that evening, frankly. It was not a productive waste of use of time. Time you'll never get back. Okay. I have a motion that we introduce and give the necessary readings to a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of Council of the Town of Mono in Session 2-2024 held on the 30th of January 2024, that it be signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed and engrossed in the bylaw book. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Capes moves, seconded by Councillor Davey. Any opposed? That motion is carried. And then I finally have a motion that we adjourn this meeting at 11:57 a.m. Councillor Davey moves, seconded by Deputy Mayor Nix. Seeing none opposed, that motion is carried. Thank you, everyone.